Numerology and the angelic rebrand. So oftentimes when we think of numerology, what kind of things do we think about? We think about angel numbers. Oh my gosh, I just kept on seeing 333, or I kept on seeing 111, or I kept on seeing, I don't know, 222 or 123 on the clock. And this narrative has been marketed, I'd say, even in the spiritual community, that you have this phenomenon, that there are these times or these numbers that keep following you. And I've come here to discuss that. This numerology quest that I'm on, we're going to just take things in small chunks, because even when I was doing my research, I was like, yeah, we can't do this all in one video. And so we're going to start with angel numbers, because I think that's when we think of the whimsical part. That's like, oh my gosh, I saw 222. Let me go and check the angel number and what it means. And I think if we start to scrape back to the very beginning of where angels came from in the first place, then we can have a better understanding of how we can look at these, I guess, the phenomena of these kind of numbers that keep following us. That's not to say that they're not angels. I think that's what we've decided to brand it as. Should I use the word brand? Yeah, that's the word, because as I go through, I want to kind of preface with the idea that seeing numbers doesn't always mean communication. In the sense that, it's tricky, because if you are on your phone 24/7, and then immediately your eyes are highlighted to see 2121, right? Then you're like, okay, I just saw that number. But I think if anything, we're more trying to understand the why and what you do next. I think the action typically has been to go online and check a numerology website to check the numbers. Now, I've looked at these websites and they more or less say the same thing in different ways. So how can we look at this in a different way that, I'm not saying they're wrong, but I'd say that it's kind of like it leaves you dangling, you know? It kind of feeds the ego, and then that's it. Now, if you're new here, hi, by the way, but if you've been with me for a bit, you know that there are patterns in everything. And it's understanding those patterns, understanding what's been happening in the course of your life, why these patterns take place. And we use things like astrology, and at this point we're going to talk about numerology and how this works for our personal course of life. So when we see these numbers, we can start to look at it that the repetition of these numbers is what catches our eye. It makes us focus in, like almost like there's like it's been highlighted to us more than any other number that's been on our phone, especially if like we're on our phone all the time. But that one just feels different. And maybe you're more sensitive because maybe you're in a very sensitive situation. Maybe there's a sensitive relationship that's feeling, so you're very hyper-focused on a lot of things, right? Again, this is not to say, I don't know, this could be a bit harsh to say, because it's kind of, there's like a missing link to the whole thing. So on its own, it can just mean that they're just numbers. But when you start to understand where it really lies, when we scrape back all the fancy bits. So let's see, we can see repetition. This is the first thing that we get when we see these numbers. But then we have to go within, right? We have to really see, and this is not, oh my gosh, I just saw some double numbers, let me just hit the floor straight away, do a meditation. It's not that. It's more like, I mean, you can if you want, but, you know, it's not practical in your everyday, I guess, busy lives at times. But but it's more understanding your state, what's happening in your life, and then understanding the numbers, which I'm going to break down the numbers in itself in another video. But this is more breaking down angels. Now, I do this because it will make it easier to start to understand a better way, a more practical way, not just say better, of understanding angel numbers. So repetition, inner state, which is also timing, and then action. And we can look at this to see it as a radio. Why a radio? Because across time, when we think of the earlier, texts, I use the Bible because it's just easier to, everybody kind of understands the Bible, right? It's been put, they did the job. Everybody knows the Bible now. When we talk about in the beginning was the word, we could use this word as sound. In the beginning was sound. And the sound could be logos, which could be, Jesus. It could be music. It could be architecture. It could be maths. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. So, in that little clue, and even other older texts, right, before the word angel began, right, it was resonance, it was frequency. And we do often allude music to angels. So there are always clues to where the origins or the foundations of angelic intervention comes in. And so when we speak of intervention, we can see it as more of like a transmission, right? And going back to the radio, a radio, you can tune into different stations. And sometimes if there's a station that is a very far distance from another station, you're going to get this interference. It's going to lock in and lock out. This, we could allude the radio, right, old school, okay, to us as humans. We are the vessels. We are what we can work through. So, for example, when I'm going to say a gospel singer, right? Because I think, wow, sometimes when I hear them sing, I'm like, that God is in the building. And what happens is that that person, they would say, is filled, right? They're filled with God or filled with a holiness that, I say gospel music, but let's think of anybody that when they open their mouth and they sing, it's not necessarily the words. I mean, the words help, but it's the sound. So across cultures, it's the sound. And the sound that makes, we are transmitters, so we don't necessarily have aerials in the sense of a radio, but we have eyes, we have ears, and we have other areas that can transmit and emit information. So anything that is information, anything that can receive information through the body is a transmitter. So when a gospel singer or a singer sings, right, and you get goosebumps because that's a transmission or a vibration that's coming into your ears, into your whole framework, and you are receiving it and you admit this, it also raises your frequency, even if it's just for a moment, but it makes you feel good. What is that? Now, it would be fair to say, but this is an element, this is an angelic element of how resonance or frequency works. Now, I'm not saying that we're angels. I mean, there are some texts that say we are we are the descendants of the ones that messed around. But just to be, we're researching, right? When we're thinking about music, I use music because it has codes, or it has chords or sounds that if you put two notes together, it does something to the body. That's why when you're just minding your own business, you're just getting on with your day, and then all of a sudden a song comes into your head, and you're like, why am I hearing this song in my head? What is that? I'm going to tell you. That is a resonance that you are at. So whatever you were doing, that is a resonance. Now, that would be the equivalent, okay, I hope you're following me now, of angel numbers. So when you hear this song, it could be good practice, actually, when it comes to controlling what gets transmitted in and out of you. When you hear a song that it was by force, very Martian, something pushed its way into your mainframe, and now you've got this song in your head that you can't get out, and it's annoying because you're just like, I didn't ask for this. What you could do is change the frequency by having a song that you already know that is of high vibration, that makes you feel good. And then immediately when that song comes in, you use that other song to replace it. And I promise you, it will be a very, very good lesson in how easily people can be intercepted. And then you start to question how much in control of your mind, how much of your self, see me, even I'm not talking well, right? How much in control are you of your mind? This is angel numbers. So if there is a repetition, that it's almost like something is happening and you're at a certain frequency, and that number is a message. So until you worked out or you raise the frequency, then you will still keep getting that message, because angels are frequencies. They are, even when we think about it astrologically, I alluded to the movie, the old thinking of angels are angles or are maths, because maths is magic and magic is music and music is resonance, and it's all the same, but they're just being translated in different ways for human consumption. And hey, it's fun, because if you can, when we have statues or where people are worshipping or create shrines, all this kind of stuff, we're creating an environment that can allow for things to be transmuted or transmitted. So it doesn't matter what you do. Everyone's found different ways to do this. Across cultures, everyone's found different ways to do it. I'm going to talk more about absorbing or across cultures what people have done when it comes to defining this resonance that takes place, because it's profound, but it's not scary. It's not like, oh my gosh. Speaking about scary, we can't talk about angels and not talk about his counterparts, okay? Because then that's just doing one of three. So in more like, I guess, more, because astrology stretches so many different places. And in astrology, there is an idea you can assign planets to angels and its angelic counterpart. Now, when you look at the angelic counterpart, they will have very similar structures, but one operates in more of a long form or a long cycle, and the counterparts, when we're talking about demons, is more of a shorter, quick return. But they're on the same frequency, they're on the same line. Just like when people say there's a thin line between love and hate, the intensity is still there. So hopefully that kind of helps you to understand these angelic numbers. Now, I'm just looking at my notes. Historically, or earlier periods, there was no angels or demons. What you had was symbols, math, sounds, and design. Yeah, I've said this. So let's get to the do-re-mi of things. Now, speaking of do-re-mi, there was a client that I had. Have. And they play the organ. Fun. It's a very, very, I would say, what was explained to me is that it's a dying trade, it's a dying skill, right? So this skill, there's a lot of politics as well, but that's neither here nor there. My point, when we think about the organ has, this is, if we want to talk about angels, the organ, very angelic, very, very angelic. And entrainment, in terms of like what you can do when it comes to entrainment, it's aligning with that frequency. So let's say if you get the goose pimples or you get that awe, that's a space that you can evoke things or whatever, right? That's the idea. Just like when you when you go to church and the Holy Spirit is in the building and you're praying and whatever, the part is where you get to that point of peak, that you use this thick energy, this is, it can be felt to a point that you start using that to transmute whatever it is, right? Most time people are asking for money, asking for their better relationship, asking for whatever it is, right? And as long as you hold that frequency, however you want to hold it, you guys got to use your imagination, those things will usually be done. But because it's angelic, and what we've understood about angelic frequency is that its turnaround is not quick. Now, its demonic counterpart, when people say they want to or not worship demons, I mean, if that is a quick return. When people do that, as opposed to going to the angelic side, it's because they want a quicker turnaround. Now, we're going to get more to that on the second page. But let's go back to the organs and we talk about the heavenly chords. Now, the organs are not the only heavenly chords, but I wanted people know what a chord is. It's like a harmonic sound. It's like when a alto and soprano come together and they make a sound or they harmonize with each other. This is what we call angelic frequency because it balances each other out. And I say that to say, keep note of that because it's about balance. Once you don't have balance and you want things to be done quickly with quick return, there are consequences to that. This is not like, oh, scary. This is just logic. It's just logic. It's just, consequences. Now, Plato says the soul is constructed by ratio. Now, this is more like, is talking more about the ratio of sound or how we are entrained by sound, which I've given you examples just now, right? We feel it. And these ratios can be called in the Pythagoras theory of the harmony of spheres. And you can have the octave, the fifth, or the fourth. And there's obviously more in between all of that, but like these are like the core aspects. And these have created different types of music. For those who watch and who know more about music than I do, I mean, I only know the snippet because I was a viola mum. So it just came part of the consequences of such. And what we have here, and so yeah, please be free to expand on that. But I understand when we're thinking about the do, re, mi, fa, so, la, ti, do. I think I did it right. When we're thinking about these notes, the do, re, mi, these notes put together create, I guess, magic in a way, or certain maths to it. And they're a level of entrainment. When I say entrainment, it's kind of like a gestation, like you're aligning yourself with that resonance. And we all can do it because we're all radios. We're all old school radios, ladies and gentlemen. And so when we're thinking about being part of that frequency, we can think about it when we even think of astrology. And we think about the planets. The planets are vibrating and at certain spheres of harmony, right? Now, each planet moves at a speed which form ratios. The planets correspond to music intervals. The ratios over time have been turned into angels. And when I say over time, because angels are it's not a new concept to us because we've been knowing about angels, right? To the point we've personified it with like wings and certain colors or whatever. And again, there's nothing wrong with this because it's another way to override any kind of doubt, I guess. If we paint a picture of something, this is another way of entrainment, right? This is another way to get to that level quickly. If Archangel Michael is painted in a certain way or has certain colors, which also assign to the frequency of that particular angel or that this energy that you want to achieve, hey, let's turn it into an image. You're going to remember that better than, I don't know, some chords, some harmonic spheres, right? So these ratios over time have turned to angels, which makes it interesting for where at what point did the categorization of angels and how they categorized it and how they've categorized demons. Because for a very long time, and it still is, right? People will say the demons are evil, they're bad, blah, 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 right? And the angels are good. Yes, but no, at the same time. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to explain certain behaviors of demons, of how it's been expressed, and how you are a radio. I hope I'm trying to say it without saying it. People are worried about these ghouly creatures that we have personified. We've used our imagination to personify the energy that thing is at, right? And we're obsessed with that. We're obsessed with the packaging. I would say that we're obsessed with the branding, the packaging. We're not really bothered about the contents, I think. So like, let's say if you go to the club, like, you're gonna have a lot of demonic frequency there. This is not to say it's bad. It's just something, like, if you resonate at a certain frequency, it probably isn't going to benefit you being in that space. But it depends. It depends on who you are, depends on your lineage, all this kind of stuff. Yeah, but that's for another day. But what I'm saying is that the basis of it is resonance, is sound, it's music, it's maths. Certain buildings you go into, it's the mathematical construction. This is why cathedrals, if you want to just get in alignment, just go to a cathedral, which is very interesting because the cathedrals are kind of made as like a spectacle. You don't really go into one, or you may feel that you can't be there. You have every right to go in there. And when you go to a different country, go into the cathedrals. They're made for you. They're made for you to reset yourself. And there's different ways. You don't have to go to a cathedral. You can go and do yoga, or you can go do something that brings you to a level of, I feel so good. You know, like that? And, everyone's going to find their ways. But either way, just like there's a thin line between love and hate, there's a thin line between angels and demons. And there's a thin line between us as consciousness, right? That these frequencies are traveling through the unseen. Now, if we think of these as intellectual beings or messengers of God, when we're thinking about angels, right? They're messengers of God. I mean, we could even say the demons, because when we look biblically, when we look at the book of Job, and I talk about the book of Job a lot because, I'm pretty sure like it's really talking about the trials of life, okay? And Satan is just out here having a good old conversation. He's like, yeah, look, let me do my job, innit? Your job is your job. I just want to prove to you that he might not be where he says he is, but let's just see. And God's like, oh, okay, you bet. So it would suggest that there is a understanding in how humanity can be tested. And I feel that when we speak about intellectualism, or we intellectualize the planets, or we intellectualize the cosmologies of cultures across the world that talk about angels or their equivalent, it gets really interesting, because even I speak about Christianity a lot because it has absorbed so many different older or ancient gods to form a new thing. But we're more focused on the packaging than the contents itself. And this is where, even when I think of angels as messengers and they fly, I'm like, it's sounding like it's giving Mercury energy, right? I'm not saying that angels are like the symbolism of Mercury or the symbolism of Hermes, because it's not. It's more like all of these things are frequencies, and all of them work together for good, I guess. And so if we see Mercury is a transmitter, but it's a transmitter to, if we're thinking of the components of a radio, it's part of it, but it's not like it helps to receive the message on the other end. So if we're thinking of it as a radio that receives information and then transmits it out so that it makes sense to us, much in the same way a singer receives the gift of, or the ability, and we talk about gifts in the next page, right? the ability to have this energy to make everybody feel so good. Everything is resonance, everything is frequency. It's just vibrating at very, very high speeds. And some things, even when the word becomes flesh or becomes matter, when we speak life into things and it becomes that physical thing, this is what this angelic energy is all about. So numerology, when we're talking about numbers, when we get into the real foundation of it, it's a structure. It's something that you can use. It's something that's there to help you. It's something that is there to get you to challenge yourself. So if we see Mercury as a process, and we understand its categories of the process of Mercury, or of how we've personified it, whether it's Hermes, whether it's Thoth, whether it's Raphael, whether it's Papa Legba, whether it's any of these things, we're trying to squeeze in the older, I guess, pantheons of time into newer concepts. And it does leave some things out. It's like, okay, that's a close enough fit. We can make this god, or we can make it that demon. And scholars have been doing this for forever. Oh, we don't like this one. We don't like this one. This is not in the direction that we're going. So you're a demon. And when we start seeing it from a business perspective, right, it's kind of like it's just business. Like we kings and queens across the world want to be able to control their population in a way that whether they want to envy other kingdoms or be envied by other kingdoms, or whatever it is, right? They're like, the more order and control we have, the more money we can make. It's business. And then the more you start to see it like that, you don't have to get too into the branding of things. You say, okay, but what's it really saying? So you've got to just see things for what it is. We live in a world of structure and form. We live in a world that there are rules, right? There's ways in which look, you have to do this to get a job. You have to do this to do that. You have to, it can be argued that some of these rules are not adding up, but the rules are there, right? So Mercury is a process. Mercury is planetarily, it's formerly known as Raphael. But it functions like Gabriel. And this is where these overlaps of functions when it comes to the frequency of, what frequency does this give? What frequency does that give? There are overlaps. So whether in mythology or cosmology, they are going to have overlaps of different things. So you can kind of fix that. I sometimes, even when I'm reading about stories, I'm like, oh, that sounds like Mercury, or that sounds like Venus, or that sounds like, because they're holding similar qualities. Now, speaking more when it comes to the idea of, let's say, even demonology, the idea of, let's say, Baal, for example, and if people want a quick turnaround, Baal is the guy, right? It's like if you use, I think it's cinnamon and, the color red or whatever, and you see it in the world that these ideas or these colors evoke a certain emotion. And so is it to say cinnamon is bad? No. Now, is this an idea? Yes, because I guess when we talk about cinnamon, what is its core functions? What does it do? And once you start breaking that down, then you can break down everything. You can say, what's the functions of a cat? What's the functions of whatever animal, right? You say, oh, they have this animal, they embody this and this frequency or that entity. And then you start to realize there are only a set of frequencies or tones or harmonies and disharmony, and they've been then expanded to create different things. That's why, like, even with astrology, like, even if you want to understand numerology from the numbers or the houses, they speak on the same frequency of that number in the houses. So if you even have an understanding of those things, you've already kind of worked out the basis of numerology. Like, and then you start to play into it a bit more, and then you start looking around and seeing that, yeah, a lot of things are starting to merge together. And so I thought, yeah, let's go, just leave it at that. Let's continue. You know, I was actually thinking about, I don't know why I was thinking of this song. It's a Jamaican song, folklore song. And because I was thinking about the entrainment of even animals and why we associate certain animals to certain, like, folklore or certain mythological people or things. And I just found it fascinating. So this song is called, it's like Jankra say him na walk pon Sunday, na walk pon Sunday. Jankra say him na study for teacher, na walk pon Sunday. Tinkalai me tell, kill your maga cow. Tinkalai me tell, kill your maga cow. Jankra say him na walk on Sunday. Now, Jankra is the thing on, is John Crow, which is actually a crow, the name of a type of crow, John Crow. Now, the crow is associated with Mercury, right? The messenger god, the liminal god, or messenger, not liminal god, but like the essence that deals with, he can go up to the heavens, he can go down to Hades, he can be on earth, he's everywhere. Even astrologically, he's everywhere. I don't know what that song means, but it came to my mind when I was thinking of Mercury today. John Crow says he doesn't work on Sundays. He's not going to study for the teachers. What's the other one? John Crow say, not study for teacher. John Crow say. And he just adamant that he's not going to work on a Sunday. And if they alluded this to an animal, I don't know what it's saying. Because I initially always thought it was a man, maybe after the emancipation of slavery. I've read a lot of these kind of books. And the Englishman was like, I don't know about these Jamaicans. Yes, they're just sitting underneath the mango tree and they're not working, but they have to work because that's how you make money. Yes, I know slavery happened, but you've got to work. You can't just sit under the tree. And that's what I thought it was. Like, he's just not working. He's chilling out. But I think it's more like this time of rest, or this, I don't know, man. Let me know in the comments where that could go, because I feel like there's something Mercurian about it, or like a message. And some people, that even the songs that are written or told have clues. Whatever the clue that is, I don't know. But let's continue. I digress. I put some angels and demons together, and the reason why I'm doing that in relation to their planets, and I only did a few of them. You could research more and see the angelic counterpart and what happens. Now, when we're understanding about even demonology or the entrainment of these kind of things, the angel will always trump the demon. Always. The reason being is that the angel, when we're thinking about, let's think about HR, or let's think about a space that has a lot, the paperwork is neat, everything is in order. They know your destiny. They know where you're supposed to go. They know what you're supposed to be doing. They know what the kind of people you're supposed to be meeting. And so when you ask for something or you ask help from the angels, right, that are of God, right, that are of the Elohim, right, then you're going at the frequency of the higher frequency. Again, there's nothing bad or good. It's just what it is that you want to do. I don't know. Maybe I'm being too diplomatic. I don't know. And so when you have this energy, they're going to sit down and understand what's going on with you. Let's say you've asked your angel for protection, let's say. And then they're going to be like, you know what? Let's sit down and see why you're asking for this protection in the first place. Because maybe this human was moving mad and they're asking for protection because now they're feeling it. They're getting the repercussions of their actions. Or maybe they have a justified reason for asking for this protection because they weren't troubling nobody. No, but we need to sit down and we need to work out what's going on. They're going to get your files out. And they're going to work it out. Then they're going to clear it through, the HR or head of whoever. And they say, okay, yeah, you can pass that through. That you can clear that. You can help them. And their help is probably going to be have more longevity than if you were to go and ask somebody who probably doesn't have your paperwork, who doesn't care about your paperwork, doesn't care about your destiny, doesn't care about they don't care. So let's say you say, oh yeah, I don't know, there's some really strange people. I mean, they want to, they see a girl or a guy that they like, and they're like, yeah, maybe I can do some magic and I can call upon, I can get, now it will work. But if that is not aligned to your destiny, you think they care. They don't care. Asmodeus don't care. Wien don't care. Bilal don't care. Baal don't care. All these names that we've inscripted to them, right? They don't care. They're like, okay, we'll do it. We'll do it. Well, I'm just letting you know this. It comes with consequences. And those consequences are, if you are aligned to something or somewhere, and because of the urgencies of ego or pride or, I don't know, like you saw somebody else have it, or jealousy or envy, right? And you're caught up in that web of lies. And you then, instead of going within and slowing down yourself and thinking, okay, what is really happening here? And you say, no, I want that person, or, whatever it is, right? And you're thinking more on your ego self as opposed to anything else. And that then maybe even sets you back in terms of your destiny, or in terms of where you're supposed to be going, or that thing that you've asked for, sets you off track, or puts you in a whole different perspective in terms of your destination or your destiny. It's not good or bad. It just is. You know what I mean? It's like, we come across people that have energies of Asmodeus. We come across people who have energies of Raphael. Like we say it naturally. You're just like, oh my gosh, you're such an angel. Okay, angel in disguise. I've had that in my life as well. I'm like, I'm sure an angel was bestowed their frequency upon this person, because how? And so you are very sure at times when you know that Baal was in the building. Some trickery was gonna happen. And some people embody this. And some people take it too far, but there are always consequences to these things. So you have to think very carefully when people are doing all this kind of, you have to think carefully about if this aligns. Have you done the work? Even biblically, it says something like, there was a time where one of the angels were busy trying to fight another demon, a prince of Persia or something like that. And he didn't have time to get to where he needed to go because he was delayed, he was caught up. This energy, this, I would say it's more, I'm going to say symbolic for now, but like, it's about being able to understand that things take time when it comes to what it is that you're where you're supposed to go. So like sometimes when I see people like, yeah, you know, you got to get this thing and you got to lock in and you got to, and it's like, no, you need to understand the tortoise and the hare. That story is there for a reason. It's there. It's not every day trying to, you know, be on demon time, as we've decided to call it as humans. It's not every day. Sometimes, not all the times. And so, the Elohim, the angels, which all angels have their, you know, their descendant, they always have El, the end of their names, of the Elohim. Okay, and this is how they've kind of categorized things. So, the sun. This musically would be the unison or the octave, or an octave of a unison. And you have Archangel Michael. So Archangel Michael is about truth. It's about balance. So this would be the solar power with order. So every time it's an angel, they're always doing things with order, to the rules, to the book. Then when you have Archangel Michael's counterpart, you have Bilal, which is the misuse of power. Okay, a little bit of dibbling and dabbling, like, hey, no one's looking. Come on, we know people like this in real life. So it's fair to say we are vessels of these things, and any vessel or anything can be transmuted because it's maths, it's science, it's architecture, it's structure, it's resonance, and whatever thing that we create. So that's why even with statues, we will create statues and then invoke a certain essence or certain entity. Like, it's old school, but it has the same, it produces the same results. But we've now decided to we say, oh, that's demonic, or that's, you know, that's satisfactory, we can accept that. But it's business. It's business. We're going to get that, and we're going to get more into the business aspect of it. So, the misuse of power. Again, sometimes, even when we think about the misuse of power, right, I'm out here sympathizing with the demons. I just want to, you know what, I more want to emphasize that it's just of the same, because like hate, love and hate, there are some things that you can have that strong energy of, I do not like that. I don't like that. But it's context, right? So in the same way, when we think about angels and demons, it's context. Like, that's all I want to kind of ensure when we're thinking about numerology, right? We're thinking about angel numbers and numbers in general and its core meaning. So this misuse of power can be seen as, there's a lot of people that misuse power, right? But it's being able to understand where you can use power for good, if that makes sense. But we're researchers here. We're not creating a religion. We're just researching and pondering upon information. And so I've written the angels and the demons are different expressions of one communication field. That's it. Mars is a tritone, and he is governed by, and this is more the astrological assignments. These like the formal connections. So this is Samuel, and he's disciplined force. I mean, I was being very diplomatic, but he's gonna mash up the place. Okay, if something is wrong, he's not here to play games. He's not here to be nice. He's not he's not fluffy, right? He's the executioner. He's gonna shut it down. And some people may say, well, that doesn't really sound very angelic. Oh, he is Samuel. He is one of the Elohim. He's part of the Elohim, or an extension of. And his counterpart, or his demonic counterpart, is Asmodeus. There's a lot of people that like to use the spiritual folk. They love talking about this one. Because this is very Martian. This comes under Mars, right? And I think I chose this one because there's a lot of Martian energy that's happening in this 2026. But hey, so Asmodeus is about impulse, it's about aggression, right? It's force without order. Whereas Samuel's disciplined force is like, nah, I've done my research. I've been watching you. I've been looking at this. And I've got enough evidence here that no one, like even if I take this to HR or I take it to whoever, no one can tell me that I can't do this because I've followed the rules. And so this will be force with order. He said, I've been waiting a long time to mash up the place. I'm being very creative here. Obviously, they might not talk like that, but, we've been personifying for ages. So why can't I? And so that's Samael. He is the threshold angel, right? He has that energy because he is at the threshold. He's kind of like here and there, but he is with order. Then you have Mercury. Musically, you would have its major, second, and third. And this is Raphael. Some people, when they say they call upon Raphael, they see a lot of feathers. I'm gonna get into that. I'm not saying they're wrong, but I'm just not gonna get into that because that's not where we're going here. We're talking about numerology and its numbers. But Raphael is about clarity. It's about language, obviously, because it's about Mercury. And I guess in times of when you need clarity, you call upon Raphael. But because Raphael is, the angels are always gonna take time. So I would say, playing devil's advocate, why would I even use that phrase? If you want to call upon Raphael, and that's why some people don't call upon the angels, because they know they're moving mad, right? So calling upon things like Raphael, or the frequency or the resonance of these angelic numbers or numerology, whatever it is, right? What you're doing, you need to prepare yourself, right? Because they're orderly. What do you mean you're just going to call upon me right now and you think you're going to get an answer right now? Nah, bro, it don't work like that. And I think even maybe, I haven't done it yet, but I'm just thinking maybe understanding timescales about how the frequency does manifest might have some clues in other areas, mathematically or astrologically. Maybe. But guarantee the demons, they're going to be quick turnaround for you guys if you want. But at your own risk, disclaimer, yeah? Boon, or there's others as well, but Boon is about persuasion and manipulation. Very, even when you think about someone who's being very persuasive, or like trying to coerce you into doing something. You can even feel the demonic energy. You know what I mean? Like, you could feel it. Like, oh, really? And this is where, even when we think about kings and queens or kingdoms or control, and we think about what has been put in place to allow for people to understand these energies in a more structured way, it's helpful to understand that it gets you into a mind state of what they're trying to do, or what the powers that be were trying to do. Some things for good, but at the same time, there was still a lot of corruption. And when I say that, I'm talking about like just the order of, I guess, the order of the church, or the order of how religion is what it is today. You know, on reflection, you're just like, I can see where they're going. Imagine if this was a common thing that was marketed about, because we heavily know about the angels, but we don't really know about the demonic counterpart. And I don't think that's a mistake, you know? I think now, in this day and age where everything is being more debunked or more further looked into, the timing is right to kind of not expose, but more to explore these elements. But it can be understood to say, yeah, some people will start moving mad, but either way, without the understanding of what is actually happening when it comes to when people behave the way that they behave, right? Or circumstances happen the way that they do. And so, I just find it interesting. Then you have, you have Jupiter. That's the perfect fifth, which makes sense. Zadkiel, he's about, I said he, but you know, they are about mercy and justice. And his counterpart is Baal, right? This is more about unethical practice. It's like, practice? Who made these rules in the first place? Nah, sorry. Let's do what we want to do. What we want to do. We don't want to have to listen to nothing. Yeah, what you mean mercy and justice? It's kind of giving Uranus, that kind of like the darker side or the underside of life, based on, because when you create form and structure, someone is not going to benefit from that structure. And I think this is where we understand that with everything, in everything, you need balance. You need balance. There's a time for you to be angry about things, and there's a time for you to be loving about things. And I think even where the powers that be have formed this way of navigating the world, or being like a pacifist in a way, I don't know, looking over it, sometimes it works, sometimes it don't work. And it's about sitting down and working out what makes sense. So, in short, angels, long cycles, right? What did I write? It doesn't come at a cost, right? You're not, this helps you in terms of your journey, your destiny, etc., right? And some things you may ask for, you might not get it because it's not in alignment with your, your calling or what you're supposed to be doing. But sometimes this is where things get a bit higgledy-piggledy about structure, because a lot of people don't know what their calling are or know what they're supposed to be doing, because they've only been given one framework to work off of that's only giving you part 1 of 3 of the things that you're supposed to understand. And then when you want to have, I don't know, like a prophecy, or someone prophesies over you, or whatever it is, some witty person to be able to get you to understanding who you are, if you can't work it out, sometimes you won't get the right message because maybe they're not supposed to give you that message, or however it works, or you're not obtaining the clues and reflecting on that information. And so, again, I get this structure. I get it's a business in terms of religious structure. I get it's a business. It's a way to keep humans in line, because they can be easily transmitted And the best way to keep them in a certain frequency that will help them in the long run is to have a set of rules, a set of things. But then if you're only given part of the information, this is not helpful in the long run. And this is why we had the issues that we have now, where, you know, I've had clients where they are part of a religion and they're coming to me and I'm like, well, according to your scriptures, you're not supposed to be here, mate. Now, I don't have nothing wrong with it, but like, and I'm not here to judge, but like, me low-key judging, but like, it's the soul. The soul is asking for more and it can't find the answers in that space, or they don't have the patience to have it, or they're rushing. So that's why even now, when I've created this kind of covenant prayer, is to kind of get back to that point of understanding what it is that you're supposed to be doing here, you know? And I think when we think of numerology, it's so important because numerology, even astrological numerology, and we'll get to that in later videos, and about how other people have used numbers, even the degrees in astrology as a way of entrainment. It's fascinating, you know, some fascinating stuff. And one of my videos, that's what it's really about. It's trying to not debunk, but like take the veil off the eyes, see things in its core sense, and then reflect on yourself about what it is that you're supposed to be doing. That's it. That's what I'm here for. So yeah, angels long cycles, demons are short cycles. And this is why, and I keep repeating it, but maybe this for a reason, like why the people or religious structures focus more on angels. But you need balance. You need to be able to understand. And this is not, I just want to be clear. I'm not saying, hey, start to worship demons. I'm not saying this. I'm just saying, think about things. Have some time to write things down. Have some time to reflect on things. If you feel scared, then you're probably not ready for this information. But just take time. There's no rush. Because the minute you start working on it, you're going to find the right people that are going to tell you the right things, or you're going to go to a space that's going to, everything works. Just, if you force things, then yeah, it's going to be, this is demonic. If you rush things, you know, it's demonic. Take your time. There's life will tell you, hey, you need to be like this and you need to do this. And if you're not where you need to be, you're losing, and you're not. This is a lie. This is demonic. So let's talk about the gifts, right? When we're talking about Genesis, and I wanted to break down the Elohim, or the angels, you know, the higher, who's above the angels, right? And in Genesis 1:1 in Hebrew text, I'm gonna try. Bereshit bara Elohim et Hashameh viet Haaretz, which translated is, in the beginning created Elohim the heavens and earth. Now, Elohim are multiple forces, and it's expressing itself as a collective force, a collective intellectual force. And these collective intellectual force have brought forth or created this frequency of angels for us. So they're acting as one source, which is why they say, oh, there's only one God. Maybe even when we break it down, when we bring it down to this core sense, it's not. And it's helpful to kind of have that idea. So it makes more sense. Like if you are, it would make sense if there's multiple people helping to do different functions, because it's just like in life. If you're doing a big project, it's not a one-man band. I mean, some people out here in this world, they would be like, yeah, and I did everything. No, you didn't, mate. You had people in your team working night and day, looking at you side eye, saying, look at this guy trying to get all the glory, and it's everybody else, all of us back here helping you out. It's kind of like that, but it's not. It's like there are multiple people, but they are one. They have one action, one cause, one understanding. So I guess both things can be true, I guess, that there's one God. I guess, because it's one consciousness. It's like a hive mind. So in First Genesis, they use the word Elohim, right? In Second Genesis, which I've always said, there's like two different narratives, like, and you can feel the change in the way that they're speaking, the way everything is different. Genesis 1, the God or the gods there are very passive. They're not dealing with humans like that. They're just kind of like, we're creating the earth, we're doing this and we're doing that, la 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 la. Right? Maybe the architects, the OGs, maybe Gaia and Kronos, you know? Oh, sorry, Uranus. And then we get Genesis 2, which starts to talk about making humans, right? And it uses the word Yahweh and Elohim, or Yahweh Elohim. And then we break it down, because then they said, okay, Yahweh Elohim are one. They're the one and the same. We're not breaking this up. They're just the same thing. Which again, if you want to look at it like that, I guess, you know. But when you say that initially without a breakdown, it's going to be confusing for a lot of people, you know. And so Yahweh is a south regional deity associated with war storms and the covenant, which we see a lot in the Bible, right? And so he deals with contracts. He deals with things that humans are always in contact with, okay? We're in contact with war, we're in contact with storms and the covenant. This is an old deity, but across time, hopefully if you are watching this, you already have an understanding that across cultures, everybody's got similar gods, right? If they give the description of who they are, the character description, you're like, oh, that's like our God, blah, blah. Or that's like our Mary, like in this one, or, you know? And so this God was now created into the Bible because they're based off older stories. And kind of saying, okay, we want this story. Nah, the Book of Thoth, forget about it. The Book of Judas, nah. He messed up the whole thing, but he's trying to tell people you can't worship Jesus. Hey, he can't be in it. And so you've got so many different books that didn't make the cut. Does that mean that it's wrong? No, there's a bunch of guys that had an idea for control and dominion to make money and to get people in order. So people are not out here worshipping Osmodeus by the droves, you know? So some things I can say, I can see where they're coming from, but other parts I'm just like, yeah, well, now this is when you try to control things to a degree. You can't control something so huge. You can't even categorize. I mean, we tried to categorize it, but it's so huge. But hey, look, we're still here, right? We're still here trying to understand things. And so Yahweh then in Genesis 2 creates humans. And we have the contact with Yahweh, right? Elohim don't have time for us. Even when you think about, I think if you're in Yoruba cosmology or voodoo cosmology, you think about, there are gods that just don't interact with us. They're too high up in the chain. They don't have time for us. And then you have the intermediary, right? who communicates with us all the time, and people have named them different things across time, blah, 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 blah. Everyone's saying the same thing. It's just like, if you can rebrand an idea, yeah, I don't know why I'm thinking of it. I'm thinking of Kim Kardashian. And let's say, what was it that she did? Braids or something? And then it was like a discourse about it, but she rebranded it to a market that made people feel like it's a thing now. But it's because she's like a node for like, she can resurge or expand the different consciousness that maybe probably wouldn't have aligned with that idea. I'm saying braids for as an example, but like if that person didn't do it because they look like someone that they want to align with. So in a way, when we're thinking about even influence, you can curate and brand something in a way that becomes more accepted, right? It might not be right, but it's like, okay, that's the mode of consciousness that people are going in. So there's that. Then you have Elohim, right? Again, they're not talking to anyone, but they just created the earth, right? Doesn't talk to humans. And so they've merged the two together. But when we look at the genesis of where it is, and this word Genesis is so fascinating to me because it's talking about an emergence, rising up to become something, to be. And even though it's not the same, it reminded me of the word genie, right? Now, and I think I've said this in another video, the word, I don't know why I'm writing this way, but the word genie is a French word, right? It's and it's a word that when we think of the word genie, genius, jinn, across cultures have a similar essence to it. Even when we use the French word of séginal, and even I don't know how to spell it. I'm saying Jamaica, they call it ginal. When someone is ginal. We're going to just briefly, because I'm going to get somewhere with this, right? Bear with me. We're talking about transmutation or transmission of angelic energy or resonance. Even words carry this resonance, right? This is why they say word is magic, or even when people are chanting or speaking on things, it has resonance. So Séginal is like, oh, that's so great. It's amazing. This is great. But it comes from the word genie. And genie, the idea of genie or the understanding of it is that if you're a poet and you write a good song or you write a good piece of poetry, it's like you're a genius. How did you connect all these things together? How did you do that? This is genius. And the idea of a genius is this is not just, you're not working alone. You're not working by yourself. There's something either in your lineage or something that's been bestowed upon you to allow you to get to this level. This is what we call gifts. A gift from God. And this is where it gets a bit complex, right? Because when we think about, but we call that the Holy Spirit, of course. Or we call this whatever you're attuned to when we come to this kind of holiness that allows you to be or have these gifts, whether you're a good drawer or or good at drawing, sorry, or you're good at singing, or you are able to, I don't know, predict things or whatever, like whatever ability you have, this would be in more ancient texts that you have a genie. And then when we think about across time, I'm going to put my video tag, because I can't remember the video I did, but I broke down all the cosmologies across cultures, or there's some as much cultures as I possibly could put in there, to talk about how everybody understands souls and that we don't just have one, we have quite a few. And how that's been looked at. Some gets awarded throughout our time, some come with us through lineage, and so on and so on. So this idea of genie or something's jinal, or something of a certain higher essence that is not necessarily of human likeness, can either some people can see it as bad or some people can see it as good, and I wouldn't blame them. But the fact that the words merge in sejinal and something so called jinal, and then you have jinn, and the words, either the J or the G has been changed around, but like they don't have, sometimes it's saying it's a good thing and sometimes it's saying it's a bad thing, but they still have the same sound. Even if the J and the G is turned around, the sound is the same. The essence is still the same. Genesis, I'm not saying it's the same thing, but the sound, this is where the inception or the rising up of information has come through, right? It's a frequency. Sound, words as well is a frequency, but we're obviously, I mean, it's fair to say that you can't have numerology without the alphabet. You can't have it because numbers is an expression of letters, and we've used letters instead of numbers so that we can communicate in a way that, you know, in terms of form and structure and control and all this kind of stuff, we've learned how to communicate effectively with using letters and sound from those letters. So I think when it comes to what we're good at, or what we have bestowed upon us, when we think about the Holy Spirit, and it says, biblically it says, do you not know you don't exist by yourself? And sometimes the Holy Spirit, depending on your resonance, if you start doing things that you know that you're not supposed to be doing, I laugh because I'm human. You know you're not supposed to be doing, and you do it. You know there's just gonna be consequences, right? But to have this idea that people are purely just angelic or are just good and purely just bad, this is not true, you know? So do people want to stay at a low frequency sometimes? Yeah. But there's context, right? There's trying to understand where that's coming from. But everybody has a choice. And when we think about the Uranus or the archetype, I like to allude it to the Joker. He has he's kind of saying, hey, look, the world is disgusting. I don't like it. And if you want to try and act all like, oh, everything's all perfect, you're lying to yourself, and you're being blind to things that are reality. And if you want to pretend, do your thing, but this is how I'm gonna deal with it. And is it okay that the Joker dealt with things the way he dealt with? No. But can you understand his story? Yes. So I feel like when we think about the genie or the genius, it comes in different frequencies. As we probably can allude to, knowing that there are some really talented people that are not nice. And seeing it as something that is bestowed upon them, you don't have to be good or bad to have this bestowed upon you. But you have to be at the right frequency. And sometimes that frequency can, according to ancient text, can be due to your lineage, your bloodline, whatever, right? So some people just have it by default and can, they can use it to do whatever they want to do. And And this is why, even when we think about religion and protection, this is why it's so important when people say, oh, you need to pray every day, or you need to do whatever it is, right? Because people are doing bits. And you got to make sure that you're aware. However, because you don't, everyone's found ways in which that helps them the most. And that is easiest for them, but you've got to reflect on that. You don't gotta, but when we're thinking about numerology and the messages that are being put through to you, you know, what is that saying? And if there's a cycle, and if these cycles are coming short and quick, there might be something that you like, okay, there's a music that's being played over and over again, and I need to move out of that resonance and go into a new one. And that's all it is in the end. And so I think we're nearly coming to the end. What else did I write? Ancient systems. Yeah, so entrainment looks like sound, breath work, emotion, and also your attention. And when I'm saying that, it's more like your permission. So everyone can be transmitted like a radio, but it's like, what have you given permission to? And permission doesn't just look like, yes, I agree. Permission can be through emotion, and mainly emotion. You know, are you getting triggered easily? Is someone trying to deliberately do that? Like, people are proper well-versed in all of this, yeah? You don't know. Let me tell you a story. There was a time, I think it was one of my Bikram classes. I knew this guy was moving mad. He was probably one of the, I don't know, one of them strange organizations, okay? And I put my mat somewhere in his space. I didn't know, because the layout is not a layout that I'm used to. So I just plonked myself there. I didn't understand why nobody else just could tell me, hey, that's where the teacher goes, right? And so I laid there and I just closed my eyes, just getting ready for the lesson. I don't know who this person is. And they come in, and the way he spoke to me was like I felt him come next to me, and then I felt him walk away. And I was like, huh, okay. And then when he came back again, he was like, I can't remember. It was just rude though. It was like, you need to move from there now. Something like this. Now, the old me would have been like, I beg your pudding. What are you saying right now? Okay. And then I was whimsical about it. I was whimsical about it. And even as I'd gone on, I knew that I could, let me not say that, but I knew that I could, by the end of it, he's going to be chill with me. And you know why? Because and you know what he did was so interesting. As I was doing the moves, he realized that I could do the moves quite well. But he initially was like, yeah, but do you not know that this is going to be 42 moves and we're going to do this position and that position? And I'm like, yeah, it's cool. Like, let's go. I've never done it before, but I'm gonna give it a go. Smiling. And then he just kept on focusing on me. Even though there was nothing wrong with what I do. I know I'm good at this stuff, right? So you can never try and make me feel uncomfortable. And then he was always uttering to himself, like, why is she so peaceful? That was his demon. That was his demon, right? Like, why is she so peaceful? And I said, there it is, right there. And I say that to say, when we're talking about entrainment and emotion, he was trying to get an emotion out of me. Now, what he was going to do to intercept if I was to get angry, this is why racism is so interesting to me. Well, I don't know. But he definitely, by the end of it, he was like, oh, you got it. He changed immediately. The minute he knew he couldn't get to me in that way, he switched and he was just chill. Because the frequency, or even the demonic frequency, it doesn't stay in very long. If it's not being entertained, it's not going to stay around for long. And some people are just more transmittable than others. So you got to know. So again, if you hear a song or a repeated song that you didn't ask for this song to come into your life like that. You heard it one time. Why is it intruding your thoughts? If you're able to shift that frequency, then you probably have more control over your mindset than you'd like to believe. If not, then there's something to look into when it comes to that. This is the fundamentals. When we're talking about numerology, we're talking about its resonance, what it's trying to say, and what it's trying to deliver to you. And sometimes when we think about numbers, some numbers have certain frequencies, and some frequencies are a bit challenging. And I look forward to talking about hotel numbers, house